We live in a world where technology honestly often feels like absolute magic. I mean, we see artificial intelligence generating these breathtaking pieces of art, writing entire essays, holding full-on conversations, and it is just incredibly easy to believe there is a living, breathing mind inside our machines. But to truly think clearly in this era, we have to strip away that magic. In this documentary, we're going on a bit of a cinematic journey. We want to uncover the invisible layers of how machines actually learn, and, well, more importantly, why human thought remains absolutely essential. Now, don't worry, we're not starting with complicated code or heavy jargon. We're going to build this from first principles, starting with complete simplicity.
So let's just start with everyday life, an ordinary Tuesday, and a really simple question. Why does my phone know what I'm going to type? Seriously, you type, I am on my, and it instantly suggests way. Or, sometimes it suggests waffle, which is a bit weird, but usually it gets it right. So, is it reading my mind?
Well, no answer comes immediately. Instead, to figure this out, we really have to ask a much deeper question. Does predicting something actually mean understanding it? Just allow that question to sit with you for a moment. Let it guide our entire exploration today as we carefully peel back the layers of both human and machine intelligence. To answer that, we've got to start at the absolute foundation of intelligence, which is observation. You see, observation creates questions, and those questions reveal patterns. Now, a pattern is simply a regularity we can notice. Think about your own everyday life. If you see dark clouds gathering up in the sky, what do? You grab an umbrella, right? You've noticed a pattern. The dark clouds often come right before the rain. But notice something absolutely crucial here. Recognizing that pattern doesn't mean you control the weather. It doesn't even mean every single dark cloud is going to produce a massive storm. It just means the pattern is a really useful clue.
And this brings us to a really beautiful contrast between us and the machines. When a human anticipates something, like, say, knowing your best friend is about to burst into laughter before they even speak a word, we're using our lived experience, our senses, our social context, our emotions. We literally feel the room. But model prediction, it uses learned mathematical structure. It just breaks the world down into numbers and tokens and calculates what's statistically most likely to come next, based entirely on millions of past examples.
But wait a second. If a machine can mathematically predict the rain, does it actually know what it feels like to get wet? The answer, of course, is absolutely no way. It doesn't have a physical body. It has zero senses. It doesn't shiver in the cold when the monsoon hits. It's merely calculating the probability of the word rain or plotting the numerical trajectory of a storm. So how does the machine actually make these predictions then? Well, it's not a brain at all. It's just geometry. AI turns data into coordinates in this massive high-dimensional space. By measuring the physical distance between points, it finds relationships. If 2 points are close together, they're considered similar. So if your movie preferences are geometrically close to an action film, the system just recommends that action film. It is quite literally just measuring distance to turn similarity into a prediction. But hey, intelligence isn't just about making a single lucky guess, right? It's about improving. Imagine a student learning archery. They shoot an arrow and it lands way, way off into the trees. Now, a careless observer might just say, wow, terrible shot. But a careful coach, they say, that is incredibly useful information. Because the arrow's placement actually reveals something about the archer's grip or their stance. And you know what? Machines learn exactly like this, by measuring mistakes. The error is just the distance between their prediction and reality. So by measuring that mistake, the machine simply adjusts its internal geometry to do slightly better the next time around. Yet even with all this perfect geometry and perfectly measured mistakes, we really must remember the limits of this system. A pattern whispered not as destiny, but as a clue asking for context. A pattern should never, ever be treated as an absolute prophecy. Just because a machine predicts a certain outcome based on historical data, that doesn't mean the outcome is guaranteed or even that it's the right choice for the present moment. Okay, but if machines can process patterns this incredibly fast and learn from their mistakes so efficiently, where do humans fit into the picture? If the math is really that powerful, are we just becoming obsolete? To answer that, I want you to think of a kitchen apprentice. Imagine this apprentice has watched millions of meals being prepared. They can instantly suggest recipes, perfectly organize 1,000 different ingredients, and imitate literally any cooking style flawlessly. But this apprentice doesn't know your family's weekly budget. They don't know your specific health restrictions. They don't even know if the milk sitting in the fridge has gone sour. And most importantly, they cannot taste the soup. AI is exactly that kitchen apprentice. It is incredibly helpful for sure, but it is not the chef. We can clearly distinguish the boundary here. Prediction, which is what the machine does so well, extends patterns at an unbelievable speed and on a massive scale. But understanding, which is what you do, connects ideas to real meaning, to lived experience, and to actual real-world consequences. Prediction is super fast, but understanding is grounded. The pot may simmer, but the cook must taste the soup. Judgment seasons all. The machine can absolutely do all the heavy lifting of simmering the data, generating a bunch of options, and finding those hidden correlations. But human judgment is the final seasoning. Without it, the dish is just completely incomplete. Now, it's one thing when a machine predicts the next word in a quick text message or tells me to bring an umbrella to work. But what happens when an AI's output is allowed to directly affect the real world? Like who actually gets approved for a business loan, who receives life-saving medical care, or who gets hired for a job? We absolutely must separate these three layers. They're way too often collapsed into one big idea. First, the model predicts. It produces a score, a rank, or some generated text. Then, the system decides, meaning a specific rule is applied to that prediction to trigger a real action. But finally, the human remains accountable. A prediction is never a final decision in a vacuum. Accountability simply cannot be coded into a machine. It is a uniquely, deeply human burden. A model can be right about a pattern and completely wrong about a person. A machine might find a statistically valid pattern in years of historical hiring data, but applying it blindly, that might ignore a candidate's fundamental dignity, their completely unique context, or their immense potential to overcome personal obstacles. Machines lack moral awareness entirely. Context is that essential bridge between a cold mathematical pattern and a living human reality. So, if we know for a fact that the machine lacks lived experience, how do we actually partner with this technology safely? How do we use artificial intelligence to strengthen our own minds instead of just slowly replacing them? Because let's be honest, if we use AI to do all our thinking for us, aren't we just trading present comfort for future fragility? The key is to use AI not as a magic vending machine for final answers, but as a really disciplined thinking companion. Step 1, explore options. Let the AI generate some metaphors or basic structures. Step 2, compare criteria. Ask it to place those options side by side so you can easily reveal the trade-offs. Step 3, challenge assumptions. Literally ask the AI, hey, where does my logic break down here? And step 4, rehearse conversations. Simulate a tough interview or a really difficult discussion. Notice that in every single one of these steps, the human is actively engaged, driving the whole process forward. In fact, before we even open one of these tools, we really must ask 3 fundamental human questions. First, what exactly am I trying to make better? We have to define the purpose clearly. Second, who is affected by this output? You've got to consider the real people on the receiving end. And third, what must remain human in this process? Perhaps the routine data sorting can be fully automated, sure, but the final judgment, the empathy, and the conversation, that must remain strictly human. Because ultimately, if a machine generates all the options for us, who really owns the responsibility of the final choice? The future won't belong to the people who simply use artificial intelligence. It will belong to those who know when to trust it, when to question it, and when to rely on their own judgment. The next time a machine offers to do your thinking for you, just ask yourself, are you really willing to give up the taste of the soup? Thank you so much for walking through this documentary with me. If you'd like to continue exploring these ideas through practical stories, first principles thinking, and deeper conversations, you'll actually find the complete book linked in the description below. Keep asking questions, keep tasting the soup, and please never let go of your own human judgment.